Life is meant to be lived from the inside out, where your inner world shapes your outer reality. I'm your host, Armand Martin, and this is The Inner Realms, Lifting the Veil. Welcome to this 5th episode, Physical Life, Part 3, where we will examine catalyst and polarity. Before we dive into this episode, I want to reiterate that what I am offering via this podcast information is a framework that many have found liberating. The possibility that you're far more powerful than victim of circumstance, that even in limitation in this 3rd density on Earth, as we move to the 4th density, that you're still the creator and that no experience is wasted in your soul's journey. But you get to decide if that framework serves you right now. Your emotional truth, your lived experience, your inner knowing, these are your authorities. Let's begin. Catalyst. What is a catalyst? Think of it as the raw material experience, basically life experience. Every emotion, challenge, relationship, and circumstance that triggers growth. Let's go to our guide on cosmology, Ra, who teaches that the purpose of incarnate existence is evolution of what they refer to as mind-body-spirit complex, a human being. So while catalyst is not strictly necessary for evolution, without it, the desire to evolve and the faith in the process do not normally manifest. So in pre-incarnation planning, entities choose the means whereby catalyst has great probability of being obtained. Agreements are made prior to incarnation with parents, siblings, and various other entities to provide experiential catalyst. You didn't just randomly end up in your family or circumstances. When the entity becomes aware of the mechanism for spiritual evolution, it will arrange and place those lessons and entities with the help of the oversoul or the higher self. It will arrange and place those lessons and entities necessary for maximum growth and expression of polarity in the incarnate experience. So at this point, we'll introduce the importance of polarity because it is the choice we make as entities in the 3rd density. I want to mention that we increasingly hear of a shift to the 5th dimension and not to the 4th density. And here is a difference described in the raw material. Ra described Earth as currently undergoing a transition to the 4th density. Remember that this was in the early 80s. And from what I understand, the Earth, which has consciousness, has since moved to the 4th density, probably around 2012. So that is the Earth, not necessarily humanity. So density here refers to a vibrational level of consciousness, not physical space. In other words, it is the amount of light. The higher the density, the higher the vibration, thus more light, more information, more awareness, if you will. So according to Ra, the 4th density is one of love and understanding, of open-hearted awareness, and it is the beginning of social memory complex formation. So go back to episode 1 for the definition of that term. Also, the numbering mismatch between the two happens because the popular 5th dimension framework tends to count differently, often treating dimensions as nested reality, which implies coexistence and containment. Ra's model implies progression and transformation. So according to Ra, densities are sequential stages of the evolution of consciousness, more like grades in school. Again, go back to my analogy in episode 1. The nesting framework can lead people to think, in quotation marks, accessing 5th dimension is about reaching up into a layer, a frequency that's already there. Ra's framework suggests that the shift requires an actual transformation of the mind body-spirit complex itself. In other words, you become a fourth density being. So back to the concept of polarity. We are referring to the positive and negative polarities as mentioned by Ra in the Law of One Material. Ra says the fundamental choice of third density is the choice between the two polarities of consciousness and service. Basically, two paths. The positive polarity is the service to others path. And here are the high points. This is the path of radiating love and light to others. It's characterized by an orientation toward unity, compassion, and seeing the universe in all things. It requires at least 51% service to others to graduate from the third to the fourth density. It involves accepting and integrating all aspects of self while serving the whole. It is also the shorter path that moves more directly toward reunification with the source. You could say universe, all that is, or God, whichever term feels more comfortable for you. So the negative polarity is the service to self path, and here are the main points. It is the path of controlling, manipulating, and absorbing the light power of others. It's characterized by separation and seeing others as resources to be used. It requires at least 95% service to self, so extreme dedication, to graduate from the third density. It involves the separation of self from others and strict hierarchical control. It is a longer path that eventually must convert to positive polarity by mid-sixth density, as per Ra. That's because the sixth density is basically about unity. And unity is not possible if separation is your modus operandi. And so separation from others through control and manipulation is all that the negative polarity or path is about. So the nature of the choice. According to Ra, the third density is specifically designed as the density of choice, where entities become self-aware enough to consciously choose their polarity. And this choice is not inherently moral. Both paths are valid ways of experiencing and serving the source or the creator. It's a matter of bias. In other words, which way of processing catalyst do you choose? So this choice is the foundation for all future spiritual evolution through the fourth, fifth, and sixth densities. So how do you make that choice? Basically through actions and intentions. Ra emphasizes that those who remain unpolarized are either mixed or lukewarm in their service to self or service to others in this third density must repeat this density until a clear choice is made. So everyday catalysts through the lens of polarity. According to Ra, catalyst is any experience that prompts spiritual growth or expansion of consciousness and clarifies polarity choice. So here are examples showing how the same catalyst can be processed differently, depending on how you react to a situation. You either polarize to the positive, to the negative, or the catalyst remains unpolarized. And often, a catalyst is simply not fully integrated or used, so I'm going to say remains somewhat unpolarized. So we need to pay attention to the unpolarized state, and it will be described in the examples I give. So what are those catalysts in life? Small, medium, or major, which polarizes you to either the positive or negative path. Remember that life situations are opportunities and very likely part of your pre-incarnative plan to learn particular lessons you still needed to learn. So, small daily catalysts. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Positive. Sending them love. Assuming they may have an emergency. using the moment to practice patience. Negative reaction, cold calculation of how to teach them a lesson, using power, aggression to assert control. And what does it mean to not polarize the incident? Road rage, or anger that dissipates without growth. And here would be the positive path lesson: patience. Another example: a homeless person asks for money. Positive, responding with compassion, whether giving or not, examining your own abundance or scarcity, and seeing them as the other self. Ra usually refers to another person as other self. Negative, feeling superior, using the encounter to reinforce separation and hierarchy. Unpolarized, ignoring them while feeling vaguely guilty or uncomfortable. But here is the positive path lesson: compassion and generosity. And here are examples of medium catalysts. You lose your job unexpectedly. Positive, accepting without resistance, trusting the universe, using it to serve others in new ways, and examining what you're being taught. Negative, strategically leveraging the situation for personal power, manipulating unemployment systems, plotting revenge. And unpolarized, despair, blame, paralysis. But here would be the positive path lesson: acceptance. And another example: a friend betrays your trust. Positive, radical forgiveness. This is a deep transformational process which requires a shift in perception, understanding their pain, and maintaining an open heart while setting boundaries. Negative, cutting them off completely to demonstrate your power, using information against them strategically. And unpolarized, gossip, lingering bitterness, passive-aggressive behavior. Positive path lesson: forgiveness. So another sort of medium catalyst: you receive unexpected praise or success. Positive, gratitude, sharing credit, dedicating success to service to others. Negative, hoarding recognition, using it to elevate status and increase control over others. Unpolarized, pride mixed with imposter syndrome and a fear of losing it. And the positive path lesson: true humility. Major life catalyst examples: serious illness, yours or a loved one's. Positive, opening the heart, deepening compassion, accepting mortality, and serving through the experience. Negative, using suffering to manipulate others, becoming bitter and controlling. Unpolarized, asking, why me? Without transformation, cycling between hope and despair. This again is likely to be a process. And then the positive path lesson: unconditional love, equanimity. The death of someone close. Positive, opening to grief as love, serving others in their grief, deepening appreciation for life's preciousness. Negative, hardening the heart, using loss to justify cruelty or domination. Unpolarized, numbing out, avoiding the pain without processing it. Prolonged grief. The time here varies per individual, but at the same time, you don't want to stay in that frequency too long because it's a low frequency. And the positive path lesson: love and healthy detachment. And finally, a major catalyst: financial loss or windfall. Positive, seeing money as energy to circulate, serving others, remaining detached from outcomes. Negative, using wealth to control, hoarding resources to maintain power over others. Unpolarized, anxiety, attachment, identifying self-worth with financial status. And the positive path lesson: generosity and equanimity. So in conclusion, Ra emphasizes that the catalyst itself is neutral. It's how we process it that polarizes us. Those the positive path seeks to accept, forgive, love, and serve through all experiences. The negative path seeks to control, separate, and consolidate power. The unpolarized state simply reacts without conscious spiritual direction or making a clear choice, and thus no progress toward graduation from third density. And maybe a note here. According to Ra, the vast majority strive for the positive path. There is apparently a small number truly on the negative or service to self path. However, again, according to Ra, the majority don't make full use or do not fully integrate catalysts and so do not graduate to the fourth density. This is why the primary importance of paying attention on how one's actions keeps you in an unpolarized state. Today we talk about timelines. Something has shifted. Earth transitioned as some predicted in 2012. Since then, especially in recent years, notably 2025 and maybe 2020, a wave of awakening is moving through humanity. If you're listening to this, chances are you're feeling it. That is the higher frequency making itself known through you. So this is the significance of the choice Ra was speaking of in the 1980s. It isn't theoretical. The shift is already underway, and the question Ra poses to each of us is simply, which path do you choose? Let's end with a practice that I'll call the polarity mirror. At the close of each day, bring to mind one interaction or experience that triggered a strong emotional response, negative or positive. I suggest keeping a journal to see patterns, which would lead to awareness of a lesson to be learned. So ask yourself these two questions. So number one, what quality in this person or situation am I resisting? And two, where does this quality also live in me? So we spent this episode in the thick of it. Catalyst, integration, soul contracts you agree to before your first breath in this incarnation. So the lessons, the friction, and the spiritual growth inside this density, inside this forgetting. So in our final episode, we will follow the soul all the way home, and that journey begins exactly where every incarnation eventually leads. The moment the body is released and the veil begins to lift. However, Dolores Cannon's work did not stop at past lives. As her later clients went deeper into hypnosis, many of them stopped describing past lives altogether. Instead, they were speaking of lives way beyond the veil and existences on other worlds, other realities, civilizations beyond this current one. So in our next and final episode of the series, we will finish by exploring the information Cannon gleaned from these clients. This podcast combines human insight, research, and creativity with the assistance of artificial intelligence tools used during the writing and production process. As you move through your day, remember, life isn't happening to you. It's unfolding from within you. Notice what you're creating with your beliefs and gently choose your thoughts again, if you wish. This is the Inner Realms, Lifting the Veil. I'm Armand Martin.